Hi everyone, welcome back. Here I'll be discussing separate paintings in depth and explaining the references behind them. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to MediumRareChicken.com. George Washington had a complicated relationship with Native Americans. He was born into a world in which Native peoples were still major players in the Americas, despite having suffered through 3 centuries of European diseases, dispossession, and warfare. Throughout his life, Washington negotiated with and served alongside Native peoples, fought against others, and sought their land for his own prosperity. Washington's first encounter with Native Americans occurred while on a surveying trip in 1748 when he was just 16 years old, noting in his journal, on March 23rd at about 2 p.m., "We were agreeably surprised at the sight of 30-odd Indians coming from war." During the French and Indian War, Washington spent the majority of his army service in Indian country and had the opportunity to interact with Native Americans from many nations. He grew to appreciate Native warriors, military tactics he saw firsthand, and later implemented some of them during the Revolutionary War. As Commander-in-Chief, Washington instructed armed forces to attack Native nations allied with the British or who resisted American expansion. By the time of his presidency, Washington and many of his contemporaries had come to believe that Native Americans had no choice but to assimilate into American society or face extinction. He also spoke of wanting to create policies based on the principles of justice and humanity towards Native nations, but the stability of the young republic and its citizens was his clear priority. Washington's entire Indian policy and his vision for the nation depended on the acquisition of Indian territory, but from 1793 to 1794, he insisted that no one talk to the visiting Indians about buying their lands. These were perilous years for the young nation. Hostile foreign powers, Britain in the north and Spain in the south, threatening American borders and interests. A powerful Indian confederacy north of the Ohio River had defeated one army, destroyed another, and remained defiant, and what Washington called the momentous occurrences in Europe threatened to embroil the United States in conflict between Britain and revolutionary France. Washington knew that Indian lands were vital to the future growth of the United States, but as his gag order on talk of buying land illustrates, he also knew that Indians were vital to national security and, on this occasion, the very survival of the fragile republic. During the war against the French, the Iroquois tribe sided with England and were rewarded with a status that allowed them to have land, commercial rights, as well as protection against the expansion of colonists. When the War of Independence broke out, the settled Iroquois tribes of the state of New York supported the English soldiers and participated in actions against the rebel colonists. On June 4th, 1779, the general of the Revolutionary Army, George Washington, violated the treaty and ordered the invasion of the territory of the Iroquois Confederation. He insisted in killing as many Indians as possible without taking into account age or sex. The survivors were to be given as agricultural slaves to the quote-unquote colonists who deserved them. Destroying not only the men, but the settlements and the plantations is very important. All sown fields must be destroyed and new plantations and harvests must be prevented. What lead cannot do will be done by hunger and winter, he was quoted as saying. From June to December, over 40 Indian settlements were massacred and thousands of their plantations were devastated. The Battle of Little Bighorn may loom in popular consciousness, but it is the fray now known as St. Clair's defeat that marks the Native Americans' single largest victory over U.S. forces. In 1791, in what is now known as Ohio, a pan-tribal force under the direction of Shawnee, Miami, and Delaware leaders served notice to the fledgling American Republic that continued incursion into Native American lands would come at a dear price. In this case, that price was at least half the soldiers on the U.S. side killed. Some suggest the number was far greater, and nearly 20% more badly wounded. News of the rout caused George Washington to temporarily lose his legendary cool. More than one source reportedly heard from Washington's personal secretary, Tobias Lear, how the president raged about General Arthur St. Clair. Quote, "To suffer that army to be cut to pieces, hacked, butchered, tomahawked by surprise, the very thing I guarded him against. Oh God, he's worse than a murderer." Once Washington simmered down, he embarked on a path that would define both his administration and his country: the creation of a standing national army and the pursuit of a war to secure the West for U.S. expansion. Now into the painting at hand, starting with the main piece of the series titled George Washington and the Broken Man. In this series, Washington stares unsympathetically at the audience, similarly to his portrait on the United States $1 bill. Beneath him is the word Monopoly, spelled out exactly like the world-famous board game. This is to symbolize how America is a game that was not designed for us or by us. This country, similar to the game of Monopoly, was built on capitalism and economic warfare. Above the Monopoly logo is the Kituwa Casino. This recurring symbol represents many different things, started with the continued notion of America being a game where the house always wins. The casino also represents the trade that some Native Americans made in exchange for their land. The letters casino are all lit up except for the N and O. This was to symbolize the no that so many Americans who are not white are forced to encounter when playing this game, living in this country. The number 577 also recurs in this series for one reason. It was the amount of enslaved people that lived and worked at Mount Vernon, Washington slaves. That is also why the number is present in the upside-down cross, which symbolizes how Christianity was used to influence the New World. Above the upside-down cross is the village of the Broken Man. This village is another recurring theme in each of the paintings, representing different timelines and events. There will be more to come on that shortly. Above the village is a portrait of the Broken Man's skull and traditional headdress, looking down on Washington. Right above Washington's portrait is a title, Stolen Land, Broken Man. 4 words that perfectly sum up what came out of the deal between Washington and the Native Americans. In the second painting of the series, the Broken Man is seen on a skeletonized horse's back, rushing to the casino. Right behind him, his village is in flames and his home is burning. Below him is the title of the painting, Rebel. In front of him is the Kituwa Casino, intact and welcoming to all. Washington's cross is also present. This painting is to symbolize what happened when the Broken Man realized that he had been duped and decided to go get his revenge. In the third installation of this series, the Broken Man is seen, this time on a motorcycle, heading back to his village. This panel represents the Broken Man getting his revenge and setting the casino ablaze. The casino, representing the deal between America and its natives, is burning to symbolize the end of the agreement and the outcome of the rebellion. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to MediumRareChicken.com on YouTube and Instagram. Each of the paintings depicted in this video are for sale. Thank you and see you next time.